Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. Boy, do we have a whole lot to talk about today. Of course, the Dodgers have lost 4 out of 5. They're going to win the NL West. They're still 14 games above the Giants in the NL West. But the Julio Urias situation, down on the farm, there's a lot of great action, especially from some of the most recent draftees from the 2023 class. So, Austin, boy, what a show we have today, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a very meaningful show. There's obviously a lot to talk about. The landscape, at least from the last time I was on live Wednesday night last week with Dodger Dogs, the landscape kind of has changed a little bit. There's definitely a lot to talk about.
No doubt. Okay, so let's dive into the Dodgers game before we talk about Julio Urias. The Dodgers have lost 4 out of the last 5. Last 4 games, haven't played real great offense. You know, we talked about even on the Dodgers Dogs show last week that there were signs that the offense was slowing down. You know, one of the questions was, hey, is there anything to worry about going forward? Of course, then the Dodgers lose 3 out of 4 to the Braves. They don't play good offense last night, just kind of flat. Clayton Kershaw, his velo is down. You know, that's the second performance in a row, in my opinion, that he's had anything that he hasn't had anything close to his A stuff. Ryanyarbrough gave up 3 runs. So dive into, first of all, what there are to be concerned about with the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, no, I think with this show, we try to tend to be a little bit more positive, try to highlight a lot of the good stuff. There is a lot to be concerned about right now. And I'll go ahead and start with Kershaw with his velo being down. That is definitely concerning, especially with the injuries that he has been dealing with. And we know with Kershaw, he's going to give every single thing that he possibly can to help this team win and to just bring out the best of him. But sometimes that can be really tough when you're relying on that, and the Dodgers kind of need him right now. And to see him have the struggles, especially with the velo, which is some of those concerning signs that you kind of see before there might be potentially some limited innings that he could be dealing with. Definitely concerning from that aspect. As far as the offense is concerned, I still think that they're going to be fine for the playoffs. I think this might just be one of those tougher stretches, especially with kind of the team morale has really, I'm sure, taken a big hit over the past couple of days. So with that, I'm not overly concerned long run with the offense. Right now in the short run, it's just it's been a really tough past couple of days for them, I'm sure.
Wise beyond your years, Austin. What are you, 25 years old?
24.
24? Yeah, man. Keep things in total perspective. Great take right there. So, hey, let me ask you here. I'm peppering you here with the Kershaw questions, but, hey, the Dodgers, they absolutely now, especially with the Julio Urias news, you know, and you have all the rookies, which are pitching great, and I posted about that, how well all the rookies have been pitching as of late. A pretty big sample size of action. But, man, the Dodgers desperately need Clayton Kershaw to be that #1 guy that can go out and beat a team's #1 pitcher in the playoffs to get the series off to a good start, especially in a 5-game series when you only have to win 3 games. Okay, so more concerning, the velo being down, only 3 Ks, or the 5 walks. Which one was most alarming to you?
I would say, as far as long term, probably the velo being down, and I think that just more has to do with me being concerned about his health. Yes, and I think that is what's concerned. I think that kind of leads into perhaps some of the loss in command. If he's not healthy, he's not able to have his best stuff, and so that was kind of the biggest concern for me, because the Dodgers desperately need him to be healthy going forward, because he's the biggest part of this team. He is their ace. They need him to be healthy to perform in the playoffs, and right now it doesn't appear like he is 100% healthy, especially with some of these concerning signs.
I would totally agree with that. Okay, let's get to some of the bright spots to last night. James Outman. Check this out, Austin. James Outman's on-base percentage in his last 30 games. And we know, hey, this guy can run. He's a guy that should be able to steal. Although stealing bases isn't necessarily like, hey, that's not the top of his game. He still is a very good base runner when you're talking about, going from first to third or scoring from second, or, those kinds of speed aspects of the game. He still is fast and has good speed and is a good base runner. So it's very important that he gets on base, especially when you have a 33% strikeout rate like he's had this year. But James Outman, okay, last 30 games, on base percentage, 420. Now, let me give you an example. When he's on base like that, okay, last 30 games, 420, he's also scored 20 runs. So when James Outman gets on base, he tends to score, especially because if he gets on base at the bottom of the lineup, that's turning it back over to Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, Will Smith to drive him in, and that's just a great combination.
Yeah, that is absolutely a great combination. You just mentioned it. James Outman has a lot of completeness to his game. Yes. He's got a lot of those different tools that he can add to it. He's got the speed. He's got the defense. He's got the ability to hit. But with that, his ability to draw walks, to get on base, is incredibly important to that skill set as far as long-term future is concerned. We've seen players around the league, for example, like a Javi Baez, who has really struggled. He has a lot of swing and miss in his game, but he doesn't draw a lot of walks, meaning there's a lot of inconsistency there. I think with the inconsistency that we saw with James Outman during May and June, I think just had to do with him just kind of getting adjusted to the league, some of the league getting adjusted to him. But now that he's kind of settled in, his ability to draw for walks, his ability to still hit for power, I think is going to be really beneficial to him, because that's going to have a little bit less time between some of those inconsistent gaps, because you're still will be able to contribute on walks, defense, add some speed to the lineup. And when as you stated, when James Outman is on the field, getting on base, he can really help this offense.
And that's led to a WRC plus of 120, which means he's 20% above the league average in terms of his production. And when you have 20% above league average in production at the bottom of your lineup, man, that is just absolutely valuable. So I know Jay, he asked the other day, hey, can he get his strikeout rate down? I mean, 33% is too high. There's no way. I mean, no matter, and I know the WRC plus is 120, but still, it's tough to have very many guys in your lineup that strike out at a 33% clip, no matter how many times they're getting on base. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, it makes it really tough to have too many of those high strikeout guys, because that can lead to some lapses in offense to where there's a little bit less consistency if you have all of those guys strike out on a game or two, and especially in short-term playoff series, that's where it really comes back to potentially bite you. So yeah, no, there's definitely a desire to get some of that swing and miss kind of taken care of. But right now the production, at least long-term wise production, is still there.
I say that only to say how exciting is James Outman, because there's still a lot of room to grow in his game. And last year, hey, I know it was at the minor league level, but he got his strikeout rate down to 25%, which was the lowest strikeout rate in his career since he played rookie ball in his short season in 2018. So he showed signs throughout a minor league career that he did lower his strikeout rate, got it down to 25%. I think that's just about as low as you could hope for James Outman. I do think as he grows and gets more comfortable at the major league level, I think he could be a guy that could get his strikeout rate down to 25%, which is still high, but for him, I think would be a pretty good sweet spot.
Yeah, I think you highlighted right there. He's made those incremental changes as he's gone up through the minor leagues. And I think with this being his first full season at the major league level, I think you'll take take what he's given this season and then just work to make those modest improvements to his game. And I think he can take those steps over the course of the next several seasons as he continues to grow and continues to be hopefully successful at the major league level, because he certainly has the talent to.
No doubt about it. And, I always say that the cure can't be worse than a disease. Hey, you don't want to try to reduce the strikeout rate and do so in such a crazy way that you eliminate all the other parts of his game and make those worse at the same time. So it's one of those teeter-totter deals where you got to be careful both ways. Freddie Freeman had an RBI last night. He's hitting .335 on the year, OPS .984, Freeman is 344 in his last 15 games. OPS 935. He's just a ridiculous baseball player. This is major league pitching that he's doing this to. Same with Mookie Betts. Yeah. Hey, great to see Will Smith having success again offensively like we're used to. 335 in his last 7 games. OPS 842. So like I talk about, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy. Man, when the bottom of your lineup can get on base, that top of the lineup's devastating.
Yeah, that top of the lineup can be extremely devastating, and they are going to need to take a step up over the course of the next month and during the playoffs and stuff too. They are really needed. The offense is going to be there. Luckily, they do have the talent to step up and meet to that moment. But I mean, you can't say enough about what Mookie Betts, what Freddie Freeman has done, what Will Smith has meant to this team. Even Max Muncy, I know a lot of people are still frustrated about the average, still frustrated about that. He's still able to provide some sort of production and is not super expensive of a contract to do that too. So I think with those guys and with the supplemental players that you have towards the bottom of the lineup that really do help this team, there's still a lot to like about this offense.
That's why they're 31 games above 500 and 14 games in first place in the NOS with 25 games to go. So I guess that makes your magic number 11, I think. So any combination of the Giants losing, the Dodgers winning, that would be your magic number there, which I think is fantastic for this club because this club needs a solid month to get their pitching rotation figured out. I mean, whether it's going to be the rookies, whether it's going to be Lance Lynn, whether it's going to be ryanyarbrough, who we're talking about next, whether it's going to be a piggyback situation for even game 2, where if we maybe start like a Caleb Ferguson and he goes 1 or 2 innings and Yarbrough comes in, then maybe an Emmett Sheehan or a Ryan Pepio come in and get the bulk innings, that kind of thing. Ryanyarbrough gave up the 3 runs last night, but he didn't walk anybody. So I'm not concerned about the 3 runs. I think that no walks for a guy like Ryanyarbrough, I think that's what plays in the playoffs for him, because when you're talking about high-pressure situations, if you make the other team earn everything you get, the Dodgers have good defense behind that. Okay, I think some people, they worry a little bit about Max Muncy at third base, but I think other than that, the defense is fantastic. You could throw Rojas at first, Rosario at second, and we know Freddie Freeman's a fantastic defender. Outfield is great. So I think the no walks plays for Ryanyarbrough in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think with that, and he gave up 2 home runs yesterday. That was correct. Those were kind of the big runs that he gave up. Obviously, not every baseball that you're going to throw in the playoffs, hopefully not every baseball, I should say, is going to be hit for a home run. There's going to be some of that where a lot of those aren't going to go out, and especially when you're not giving up a lot of base runners, just free base runners for that really does help, because some of those free base runners can just really derail.
That's what got Kershaw, was the walk in front of the home run last night. It's not the solos, it's the walk in front of it, right?
Yeah, no, those can be really tough to deal with. And so I think with him having that command, being able to provide those 3-4 innings that Yarbrough has been able to provide are something that's incredibly valuable and something that's going to be needed. I don't think you're going to throw Ryanyarbrough out there and expect him to go 5-6 innings, necessarily start a game in the playoffs, but I think he can be and is going to need to be utilized in a role that's going to be most effective for him.
I think the rookies too. I think Jay brought up a great point. You have to trust the rookies. I showed that. I showed the numbers. They have been proving it, okay? And not just one guy, all the guys, even Michael Grove in his last couple of performances, they have been proving it, but you also have to trust the rookies through good matchups. Other than Bobby Miller, you're going to give him the ball, say, hey, go have at it, maybe even a Ryan Pepio. Other than that, you got to match things up. I think Yarbrough is in that situation. So before we get to Julio Urias, game 2, I think you still give the game 1 to Clayton Kershaw. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
Game 2, who do you give the ball to?
I would give it to Lance Lynn.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
I think that's obvious and a slam dunk.
Yeah, I think you give it
unless he just doesn't pitch well at all in his last 3 or 4 outings.
And which some of that, he's still dealing with giving up a lot of home runs, and so there's a little bit concerned with that. I don't think giving up home runs necessarily lasts forever.
Yeah.
Because I think some of those home runs will stay in eventually. I think the going into a little bit of nerdy baseball stuff, the FIP versus the xFIP, which kind of standardizes the home rate, kind of helps alleviate that, and it falls towards the mean a little bit. But there has been concern with Lance Lynn over his past couple of starts, certainly.
So is it, not to mean to cut you off, but is he expected to give up more runs than he has, or is that backwards? Is that a good trend for him?
So he is giving up more runs than he is expected because of the high home run rate. With the home run rate, with him giving up 2-3 home runs each of his past couple of starts, I don't believe a lot of those baseballs go out necessarily all the time, or the hard contact, I don't believe should be as consistent, meaning I would expect a little bit more regression towards the mean, meaning that I don't believe he'd give up quite as many home runs. But given that said, pitchers do run into bad luck. They do give up hard contact. Contact is a little bit more predictable, especially in combination with fly balls towards home runs. So there is some concern that you have with Lance Lynn. But right now, I think he would have to be the guy that you would have to give it to. It's either that or you give it to Bobby on game 2.
Yeah. I think it's Lance Lynn just because of the veteran leadership. We've seen his stuff, man. When his stuff, his stuff is really good. That changeup is good. And he's got that dog mentality. I think it's that dog mentality that he has with the added experience as well. I think that's why you give him the ball game 2. But I would say about that, not to be argumentative, but the expected fielding independent pitching, which is what FIP stands for. I would say about that, Lance Lynn has trended as far as giving up home runs for quite a while right now. That's not just like, hey, that happened last game. This has been happening for a long while. So I don't know how much that xFIP maybe even takes into the equation for him. I would be cautious with that. I would say that's something you have to be worried about as a Dodgers fan going into the playoffs. Okay, let's move into a terrible topic. Julio Urias, second time he's had an incident. First time, it's very important to understand. First time he was suspected of misdemeanor activity. This time he was convicted of felony activity, which means the cops, they have evidence. They have evidence of something that he did that was worthy of felony charges. He was actually charged with that, sent to jail, had to get out of jail on, I believe it was $50,000 bond. This situation, first of all, it's the second situation. And in the first situation, when he wasn't even charged, and it was a misdemeanor situation, still had a 20-game suspension. Okay, this is a hugely different situation in the sense that he was charged. It was felony. It's the second time around. I know the Major League Baseball is going to do their investigation. I know it's innocent until proven guilty. But, hey, that's the court of law. That's not the court of public opinion, and that's not anything that pertains to the Dodgers way. I don't see any way that Julio Urias ever is a Dodger again. I don't think anybody in the major leagues will take him on.
I think you're absolutely right about that, and it is incredibly heartbreaking. First of all, we want the justice process to go out. We want everything to be brought up, to be investigated, everything to go, just for the justice process to kind of play out. And we will respect that, and we want truth, and we want justice in this situation,
and safety for the young lady.
Absolutely, that comes first and foremost above anything with baseball. And I think with this whole situation, I think you're absolutely right. He's not going to be a Dodger this year. He's not going to be a Dodger next year. He's not going to be a Dodger probably ever again. And I know that is heartbreaking for a lot of these players who have grown to know the person. It's heartbreaking for just everything, baseball wise, human wise. But this is the reality of what happens when you go up against the law, and it's extremely tough to witness. It's an extremely tough blow to this team, but you want the justice process to play out, and we will respect that moving forward.
You know, we mentioned on one of our previous shows that something just looked off with Julio. You know, just an added extra layer of maybe frustration. You know, and typically speaking, when people's performances start to be just wildly different than what you're expecting, there's some kind of external circumstance going on. And hey, there's been a million different rumors as far as what happened, you know, and exactly what he did and all that. Not going to get into any of that. But just stay with what we actually know and the facts that we actually have at this point. I think it's very important. That's why here at Dodgers Daily, I'm not a real scoopy type. I'm not an investigative reporting scoopy type news outlet, if you will, because so much of the original news that comes out is so wildly inaccurate because everybody wants to be first, and it does so much damage to everybody involved because you get, like I said, there's two courts of opinion. You know, there's two courts. There's the court of law, and then there's a court of public opinion. So maybe the court of law doesn't take into account all those wild rumors. The court of public opinion is already over based on a bunch of maybe wildly inaccurate information and rumors. So I don't like to necessarily be first on everything. I like to be right on everything that we report here. And so stick to the facts. And so do I have any of the facts incorrect that I mentioned earlier?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah. So, okay. That is a terrible situation and one that, you know, hey, it affects everybody and several different people on several different levels. So I think that's all we need to talk about with the Julio Urias situation. Just a terrible situation. And let's do on this show like the Dodgers are going to have to do. And you know what that is, Austin?
What's
Move
that?
on. Move on.
Yep.
Move on to the next day. Hey, you know, that situation is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. So let's move on to our next topic, a topic that we love, Austin. Down on the farm. Hey, man, let's start with the Great Lakes. You weren't there last night, correct?
I was not there last night. No, I was busy with my church small group. So a little bit busy with that, but I should be there Thursday through Saturday and then for their entire postseason run.
Well, you missed a damn good one, man.
I know. I looked at it, looked at the box score right after I finished up. And it was funny. I looked at it and I was like, oh, wait, game's over that quick?
Yeah.
It was a quick one yesterday, but a very good, really, really encouraging game for the Loons last night.
Peter Heubeck, man, 2 outings in a row. We both mentioned he's given up some runs and some outings to where he has just pitched fantastic, and maybe just a couple of things went wrong and he got ambushed, and it looked like maybe he didn't pitch as well as he actually did because he gave up like 3, maybe 4 runs. But just the results train's coming for him, kind of like Ben Kasparius, John Rooney, guys like that, and boy, has it turned a corner. Peter Heubeck last night, 5 innings, 1 earned run. Check this out. No walks, 4 Ks. You know, it's one thing to say, hey, no earned runs, but when you're not walking anybody and you still are able to keep that strikeout stuff, that's big time.
Yeah, and this is what I talk about when we talk about actually watching these games, looking for a lot of those signs, because we saw this in him in his last start in Fort Wayne. If you watch those first couple of innings, his strikeout stuff was there. That breaking ball that he has was absolutely nasty and killer. And a lot of that can translate over to future appearances, especially when you start getting a little bit of a feel, which he didn't have in his first start in the Midwest League when he started against Fort Wayne. Now he's starting to get a little bit of his feel back. He's starting to get a little bit more adjusted to the level that he's at. And this is the payoff of all of the hard work that he's done, all of the different adjustments that he's made over the course of the past month. Don't always just look at the box score. Look at a lot of the performances. Look at a lot of the signs. Those are going to tell you a lot about how he is doing, some of the adjustments that he's making. And when you get a performance like this is the payoff of all of that hard work that he's put into it. And so incredibly excited to see. He's extremely talented. Obviously, we've seen that with his performance in Rancho all season. And now it's starting to show for Great Lakes.
No doubt. I've had a chance to talk to him twice, and the one thing he said, he wanted to be a little bit over 190. It looks like he's filled out pretty good. Not exactly sure where he's at, but I think he's probably close to 190 with the weight. He's always had the huge curveball, the fastball that he thinks that he can get to sit somewhere around 95, 96, where he's getting close to that. But he's really worked on having a smaller breaking pitch, you know, that that curveball, sometimes it's harder to keep in the zone because it breaks so much, and then you don't have any other pitches to play off of it because it starts so high in the zone that it's easy to identify what the pitch is, right? So he wanted a pitch that would start at the same plane of the strike zone as his fastball and then break off of that, which would be a smaller slider type pitch, and that's really what he's worked on all year. And he's worked and refined it to the point to where he's able to throw it for strikes now.
Yeah, no, and that's really good to see. Obviously, you mentioned the 0 walks, being able to control that. Yep. Incredibly important. We've seen that throughout a lot of the Dodgers minor league system. Some of the working on trying to refine some of the command. And he was able to do that yesterday, and you saw the success that he was able to have.
Okay, and then he handed the ball off to Jared Karros, who has had his 2 best performances probably as a professional back-to-back. 6'7", Jared Karros, 92-94, 4-pitch pitcher. He was just simply fantastic last night. 4 innings, no runs for Jared Karros, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. So, hey, the stuff isn't like the most explosive stuff in the world, but it is coming downhill pretty hard from that 6'7". And, hey, there's good stuff in terms of just being able to pitch, throw 4 pitches in any count, any location.
Yeah, he does have that ability, and you talked about that frame, incredibly difficult to kind of pick that up at times from such a high release point. And then also, how about him getting the save with that?
Yeah.
Heubeck and Karros being
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he got a 4-inning save.
He got a 4-inning save.
He got a 4-inning save from that too. Just really cool to see that. See some of the guys that have been in Rancho a lot and contributed to that team be able to piggyback. And let me tell you what, a little bit of context to this game. They weren't just going up against any team. They were going up against West Michigan, who is fighting for their lives as far as the playoffs. Not only that, they went up against their best pitcher too. They went up against one of the best prospects in baseball, Jackson Jobe, and they were able to sneak a couple runs and then dominate and be able to beat that team pitching wise in West Michigan too. And you have to be incredibly encouraged by that.
Jackson Jobe's from Oklahoma City. He went to a private school in Oklahoma City called Heritage Hall. And while I was the head coach at Guthrie High School, we actually got to play them on a Saturday morning. And he didn't pitch that day, but I've seen him pitch a million different times in high school. I can guarantee you, Jackson Jobe, that dude is the real deal. I mean, you watch him, and it takes you 3 seconds to go, hey, yeah, that's a major league player. Unless there's injuries that get in the way, that's a major league player.
Oh yeah, and you've seen that with the numbers that he's put up. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous strikeout stuff, and right now he has complete control of the command too. Yep. And to see the Loons, I should say, be able to go in there and be able to get a couple home runs and be able to outpitch them, especially as they're trying to build momentum for next week when they'll be starting postseason ball. You got to leave that game yesterday feeling really encouraged and feeling like you can help be the ones to kind of eliminate West Michigan from the playoffs.
Did you get your postseason tickets?
I have all the home games. I'm still waiting on the road games, and I'm waiting for games 2 and 3 potentially of a championship series too. Got to figure out where I'm going for there.
You got the Domino's tickets too, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. We got his tickets too.
Okay, ready to go. Okay, so how about the 2023 draft class down in Rancho? Kendall George, 2 for 4 last night, 387 on the season. Jake Geloff, 3 hits last night for the Quakes, 5 RBIs in the game. Joe Vetrano, he had 3 hits as well, 2 RBIs. Vetrano, by the way, the young man out of Boston College, he's hitting 282. I mentioned Kendall George is hitting 387. And then not a 2023 draft pick, but a guy that I love, absolute dog. There's a great story on him written by Ryan Falla, who, by the way, is going to co-host on Wednesdays. At least I'm going to get him next Wednesday, and we'll see what we go from there. Who wrote a great story on Madison Jeffrey. I think it was yesterday for Dodgers 2080. Tim Rogers does a great job over there. Ryan Falla wrote that story. Madison Jeffrey, we know he has the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. It's a matter of being in the strike zone with him. A good save last night for Madison Jeffrey. So, hey, the 2023 draft class continues to shine.
Yeah, it continues to shine, and really shout out to that piece by Ryan wrote and by Dodgers 2080 and the work that they continue to do. And they do a great job, especially covering Rancho because they're close to a lot of that community and that organization. But with the 2023 draft picks, you got to be extremely impressed. You got to be extremely excited by what they're able to produce, especially the year that they've been drafted to, being able to continue to put up numbers. Kendall George, obviously, first pick for the Dodgers. A little bit of a different style from what the Dodgers had picked, but I think he's bringing a lot of excitement and showing why the Dodgers believed in him to take him at the spot that they did. And then the other guys in the draft, Geloff, Vetrano, all of those guys are producing right now, and it's just really encouraging to see from the Dodgers, who don't necessarily have the highest picks because of the success that they have, because of the financial resources that they're able to spend on the major league team, but they continue to produce, they continue to find talent where they're able to, and they continue to be able to bring the best out of their talent. And I think you're seeing that in the minor league level right now.
You mentioned not having the highest draft picks because the Dodgers have been so good. 40th pick overall, Dalton Rushing. Forgot to mention he had a home run last night. So it's good to see. He's been a home run terror as of late.
Yes, he has. Yeah, finally seems to be a little bit more healthy from some of the injuries that he sustained. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Are you concerned with Dalton Rushing or not? We both said that we're not at all. And I think he's starting to show why we're not concerned, because he's hitting for some power right now. He's starting to find that swing that has always been in there back from some of the injuries that he sustained. And that's really cool to see.
Yeah, okay, so not a whole lot to talk about at AAA Oklahoma City. They had a good week last week, though. They went 4-2 against Round Rock, but did not have a good night last night. Mike Montgomery, the veteran lefty, he got the start, gave up, I believe, 3 runs, and the AAA Oklahoma City Dodgers lost last night. The highlight from that game, John Rooney, and I wanted to highlight him because, hey, he added a changeup. You know, he's been a four-seam and a changeup type guy in the past. They moved him more to a cutter, two-seam guy, made him more east and west in the offseason. He's added back his changeup in the last 2 weeks. He said, I actually had a chance to communicate with him. He said his changeup has felt great coming out of his hand, and you can tell because his last 2 outings have been absolutely fantastic. And then at AA Tulsa, not a lot to talk about either. They've struggled as of late. Hey, they've been grinding though, man. I'm telling you, that's a fun team to watch, even though they haven't won. You know, they've done a lot better here in about the last 3 weeks, but they really struggled there for a while. Austin Gauthier, 2 more hits. Emil Vargas, 2 more hits. I know those are 2 guys that you know a lot about.
Yeah, no, those are 2 extremely talented players. They are 2 guys that have had some of the most success over in the Dodgers minor league system over the past couple seasons. Last year, Emil had a big season. He's still having a really good season this year.
More power this year. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And this year, I mean, we've talked a lot about what Austin Gauthier, Gator, has been doing, and you can't say enough about his performance. So there's a lot of fun talent on that Tulsa roster. I know they've been through a lot this season, but they're still a fun team to watch, and still some team that over the course of the next week or 2, as their season is winding down, definitely a team to kind of keep an eye on and to appreciate the talent that they have on that roster.
Yep. They had the best pitching staff in all the minor leagues for well into June. I would say probably until into the second week of June. That's when they started losing Emmett Sheehan, and they started losing. Of course, they've lost Kyle Hurt. They lost Landon Knack. They lost Nick Frasso. So, hey, that's exactly what you want, though. I talked to Scott Hennessy about that. Also talked to Austin Chubb. Hey, what's it like? You know, you're trying to prepare for the playoffs. You're trying to win all these games, and then all of a sudden you lose your 7 best players. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Austin Chubb put it in great context. He said, hey, we're the Dodgers. Yeah, we lost 7 players, but guess what we're doing? We're replacing them with 7 great players, you know, coming up from Rancho, wherever it may be. So that's certainly been the case. But, hey, great show today, Austin. You have contributed so much. I love whenever you come on here, so I greatly appreciate it. Final thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's definitely has been a little bit of a concerning past couple of days. We had the Braves series, which obviously losing 3 out of 4 wasn't exactly what you wanted. But I think the biggest news right now is the Julio Urias situation and what that means for the Dodgers, just looking at it baseball perspective wise. Rookies are going to have to step up. We've preached about how good they have been, how much talent they have, and they have a real opportunity to show that talent. They have a real opportunity not just to get the playoff experience, which is going to be something valuable for them and for the Dodgers for the future. They're going to have to step up if the Dodgers want to make this postseason run that I think we believe that they can have. It's gotten a little bit more challenging. The team morale has taken a very serious hit because of this, but this is the big leagues. You have to kind of move on and you have to reevaluate your situation and be able to move forward. And I expect the Dodgers to be able to do that. I expect the Dodgers to still be able to have success. The road just got a little bit more challenging.
Nothing really I can add to that. Wonderful final thoughts there, Austin. So, hey, I think that's going to do it for today. We covered the On the Farm session. That was just about all the highlights from the farm action. Plus, hey, we've covered these guys a million times and really what they're doing at this point. They're just kind of like the big Dodgers. They're ramping up for the playoffs, which starts next week. So, hey, great job today, Austin. Great show. So that was a whole lot of fun. Just a reminder, fans, hey, we are open for business. If you or you know anybody who has a business that'd like to help sponsor this show, our Dodgers Daily Show, our Dodgers Dog Show, dodgersdaily.net, or any of our social media platforms, just email me at dodgersdaily73@gmail.com. That's dodgersdaily73@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment, or you can DM me on any of my social media platforms. Also, hey, don't forget to leave a like, share this video, interact with this video. That way it hits that algorithm with YouTube, gets suggested more, gets more views, and we can keep growing and keep doing what we love to do, which is providing videos like this in the future. So as always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in and say, go Dodgers.